This is our first regular board meeting of the year. Today is Tuesday, January 14th, 2014. Welcome to the Rossmoor Community Service District meeting. Please stand up for our, actually, I take that back. Let's do some roll call, please.
Director Coletta?
Here.
Director Casey?
Here.
Director Kaler?
Here.
Director DeMarco?
Here.
President Maynard?
Here. Now let's stand up and pledge allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we're going to start off with our traditional, given that it's the first meeting of 2014, it's customary where the president makes a state of the district. Just from a historical perspective, I like to mention that today throughout Orange County, the weather was in the 80s, while our fellow Americans elsewhere were freezing. So an odd day today, but a beautiful day nonetheless. And let's get into our state of the district. Calendar year 2013 began with a spirit of optimism. The doldrums of the previous year's economies have begun to dissipate. Homes in Rossmoor were once again at the top of Orange County communities. Both sales volume and prices continue to rise. Additionally, there was a marked increase in home renovations, all indicators of a strong Rossmoor community. This, of course, bodes well for the district's revenue stream from property taxes. Nonetheless, the district's budget continued to reflect a conservative approach to spending. The first major indication of changes in the government economy was a more robust outlook from the state's budget office in their May revised report. This showed an increase in overall revenue for the first time in several years. The legislature then adopted a budget that was passed on time and without the acrimony of previous years. Orange County, however, was dealt a financial blow by court decisions which affirmed a huge loss in property taxes due to the state's money grab of our county's vehicle in lieu of funds. You might know this as VLF funds. These funds had been which, if they had been transferred to the county's general fund, would have been safe from the state's money-grabbing takeaway. The county also lost a court decision in the attempt to take back pension benefits awarded on a retroactive basis. Overall, county finances point to reductions in both employees and services. However, none of these factors have yet to be experienced by Rossmoor. Once again, our district received an unmodified audit for FY 2012 and 2013, which is the highest possible rating. The audit included a finding that there was a substantial reserve in Fund 30, the district's WALS fund. The required reserve for the fund is $47,000. Our actual reserve totals $173,145. The auditor agreed with management's response to utilize those excess funds for necessary repairs to the wall. This board concurred, and repairs are now underway. The district's capital improvement program focused on one minor and one major project. The auditorium's HVAC system was upgraded, replacing all the heating units and external air conditioning compressors not previously replaced. This completed the upgrade to the entire system. The major project undertaken was the rehabilitation of the Rush Park Playground, our tot lot, to comply with both new safety and ADA accessibility requirements. The project was completed at the end of the year with the new equipment, surfacing, and new sand. This project brings all of the district's playgrounds into full compliance with the new regulations. Another capital project of much lesser proportions, but a high significance, was the installation of Rossmoor signage at the three main corners of the Rossmoor Village Shopping Center. While the immediate threat of annexation of the center by the city of Los Alamitos has abated for now, the district's board of directors felt that creating a Rossmoor identity for what has been termed the fourth corner was an essential component for retention of the block bordered by Catella Avenue, Wallingsford, Los Alamitos Boulevard, and Hedwig Road, within the boundaries of Rossmoor. The Rossmoor sign at Hedwig Road and Los Alamitos Boulevard has not been installed. The sign at Wallingsford Road and Catella is almost finished, and the sign at Catella and Los Almeida is in final design. Rossmoor is also celebrating our 3rd year as a designated Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation. In order for a community to receive such a designation, strict standards must be adhered to in the management and preservation of trees located in its parks and parkways. The community's urban forest continues to be a major priority for the board and the residents of Rossmoor. Work continues in the planting and maintenance of over 5,000 trees. One area containing a number of vacant parkway tree sites was around the perimeter of the community's 4 elementary schools. Because of the lack of water and resources to maintain newly planted trees, we discontinued planting new trees due to their low survival rate. This year, we've met with the school district in an attempt to reinstate tree planting at these sites. Utilizing the district's sapling water program in partnership with school district personnel, this has made it possible to plant and care for new perimeter parkway trees as soon as construction is completed at each of the elementary school sites. In years past, the district's board and staff were heavily engaged in matters of governance, based on what was considered a flaw analysis by the consultants of the Orange County Local Agency Formation Commission, known as LAFCO. Our district undertook its own analysis of the true costs and revenues for services provided to Rossmoor by the county. After the previous year's attempts to secure valid data from the county, our determination finally succeeded in yielding reliable financial records as a result of our public records requests. The district then engaged the services of the Harvey Rose Company to analyze the data and to provide an answer to the question, was Rossmoor a financial drain on the county, or was it instead a donor? The analysis demonstrated a resounding yes. Rossmoor was a donor to the county of approximately $1.3 million. To further validate this finding, the analysis was reviewed by the county's budget manager and the county's property tax section manager. Their review resulted in a slight reduction of the donor amount to be approximately $1.1 million. Still sizable difference from what was previously reported by LAFCO as a $600,000 drain to the county. Now that the myth of Rossmoor as a financial drain has finally been dispelled, the district is set to commence its goal of obtaining additional latent powers to provide more direct services to the community at no additional cost to our residents. A major component of this endeavor was the hiring of a new general manager, Mr. Jim Ruth. He possesses a broad depth of experience at all levels of local government. As the county's former CEO, Mr. Ruth has an intimate knowledge of the workings of county government, which should prove to be a valuable asset toward the goal of securing latent powers for sheriff's services, animal care services, and refuse collection services. Efficient and cost-effective service delivery to Rossmoor residents continues as the mainstay of the district and our board. Each service component is continually examined during the development and approval of the annual budget. Our district has been able to maintain a balanced budget each year with a modest carryover from the following year. Moreover, with the prudent use of funds not needed for ongoing services, the district has been able to create funding capacity for improving its facilities for the use of our residents. Unlike most local agencies, our district has no unfunded liabilities or debt. We operate on a pay-as-you-go basis with a limited staff. Our service delivery system continues to meet or exceed the needs of the community for district services. We have proven that the special district model is the most efficient form of government. The provision of additional services by the district would only enhance this efficiency. Also during 2013, the services of a valued board member, Director Jeffrey Rips, were lost due to his successful promotion to the executive director of his private employer, the Albert Jewish Community Center in the city of Long Beach. Mr. Rips felt that he could no longer devote his full attention to his duties as board director of the district. His resignation was regretfully accepted by the board. The board then opted to fill the vacancy by appointment rather than incur the high cost of a special election. After an interview and appraisal of the qualification of applicants for the position, the board unanimously selected Mr. Tony DeMarco to fill out the remaining term of the board seat, which expires in November of 2016. As an added service to its residents, the district has served as an advocate for issues not directly under our jurisdiction. A most prominent issue was that of opposing toll lanes and additional lanes as part of the proposed I-405 improvement project. In cooperation with our neighboring communities, we were successful in convincing the Orange County Transportation Authority that toll lanes would result in gridlock at the junction of the 405 and 605 freeways, with an unnecessary increase in noise, air, and light pollution directly in Rossmoor. While the issue is not entirely resolved, the voice of the community was instrumental in bringing the matter to OCTA's attention. I personally want to thank every Rossmoor resident that took the time to attend the multiple meetings and events. The community's high involvement resulted in a singular voice that was successful in keeping our freeways free. Always striving to conserve energy and resources, especially its beloved trees, this past summer, our district instituted a paperless system for producing its public meeting agendas. In combination with its 12 monthly board meetings and numerous committee meetings, valuable resources and costs have been reduced by having the board and staff view agenda packets on iPads via the district's Wi-Fi network during these meetings. The public is able to view the entire agenda packet from the district's website, where they also enjoy enhanced access to media and important public information. The district's website continues to provide the public with up-to-date notices and developments. Further, residents who join the district's mailing list receive notices and alerts on a real-time basis. Moreover, any resident who wants information on the district's finances can do so by accessing board agendas, which are updated monthly. And for those who haven't done so, please friend us on Facebook. The year ahead is one with strong indications for optimism. The housing market is becoming more robust, and with it comes a push for better performance in other sectors of the economy. While the economy is not yet fully recovered from the crisis of the recession, continued progress is evident. Though interest rates are a boon to the housing market, investment opportunities are scarce. Therefore, savings and reduction of debt bode well for the future. In spite of all the turmoil that has been experienced in the past 5 years, Rossmoor continues to be a model community, one of the most desired places to live in Orange County, California, and our country. Someone best described Rossmoor as an island of calm and tranquility. Next year promises to be one of opportunity, and all that remains to be said is carpe diem, seize the day. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. That's it. Thank you, Mr. President. In accordance with Policy 4040, which is our annual election of officers, which is within our policy for the Board of Directors, it is now, Mr. President, appropriate at this time to call for nominations for the office of President from the existing board.
Okay. So at this point, our general manager is asking for any nominations for the president. Is there so motions?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Michael Maynard for the position of President of the Board of the Rossmoor Community Services District.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Are there any further nominations for consideration? Move that nominations be closed.
So moved. Oh, I move that?
Got to call the roll.
Now I'll call the vote of the board. Director Coletta?
I have no other nominations.
Okay,
You're
Direct,
asking for
I think you're doing a roll call.
for the vote on the motion?
on the motion.
Second?
On the motion.
Yes, I support, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Director Casey?
Aye.
Director Kaler?
Aye.
Director DeMarco?
Aye.
And President Maynard?
Aye.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. At this point, we now need nominations for first vice president.
Right.
I would nominate Mr. Kaler as first vice president.
I'll second.
Okay, is this roll call as well? Okay.
Director Coletta,
Yes.
Director Casey,
Aye.
Director Kaler,
Aye.
Director DeMarco,
Aye.
President Maynard.
Aye. And lastly, to finish our leadership team, is there a nomination for second vice president?
I would nominate Mr. Casey for second vice president.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Director Coletta,
Aye.
Director Casey,
Aye.
Director Kaler,
Aye.
Director DeMarco,
Aye.
and President Maynard.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. At this point, I do not believe we have any additions to the agenda.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Which brings us to our public forum. Any persons may address the Board of Directors at this time upon any subject within the jurisdiction of the Rossmoor Community Service District. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff at the discretion of the board for report and action at a subsequent board meeting.
Good evening, board members. My name is Ralph Fertabedian. I'm a board member of the Rossmoor Homeowners Association. I've been here before to address the board. This evening, I'm here to talk about a resolution that the RHA has adopted that we hope will get your careful consideration. I'm just going to summarize this resolution for you. I think you all have it in your packages, but I think for the community as a whole, in Rossmoor, it would be worthwhile to talk a little bit about this. This is in formal language. I'll try to unformalize it a little bit for everybody. Starts, whereas the Rossmoor Homeowners Association is concerned about the intensity of our community's park use, especially by those who are not Rossmoor residents and thus do not pay for the parks through their taxes. And we go on through a series of points, and these are the ones. The beginning of this was that the RCSD provided our organization with a document which we've attached to the resolution that shows Rossmoor residents make up 28% of the Los Alamitos Girls Softball League. That's about 75 of the 269 participants in 2013, rather than half of the league as was previously represented. And the document showed that only 12% of the girls came from Los Alamitos, 20% came from Long Beach, 25% from Seal Beach, despite the fact that neither Long Beach nor Seal Beach contributes or hosts any of the games. We were also, in our opinion, believing that the board hasn't given sufficient attention throughout history to the importance of parks being available for spontaneous, unorganized uses by Rossmoor residents, the people who just show up with their son or their daughter, with their dog, to use the parks the way people do when they just walk up to the park. Whereas, although the parks in Rossmoor are open to the public, including non-residents, the RHA believes that the RCSD should operate the parks so as to give the highest priority use to Rossmoor residents, both for organized and unorganized uses. And we think that the RCSD currently has no reliable, valid information for it to determine either who is currently using the parks or who would likely to be using the parks if more resources were made available for unorganized or new organized activities, and thus how to best allocate scarce taxpayer dollars. The final whereas is, upon determining the current potential use of RCSD facilities, the RCSD should examine its fee schedules and set rates for various uses so as to set incentives and disincentives for uses consistent with what we talked about before, namely operating the parks mainly for the benefit of residents of Rossmoor. All that goes within the bounds of state law that we know you have to follow. So here's what we're asking for. Here's the bottom line of this resolution. We're respectfully asking RCSD board to conduct or to order to be conducted a comprehensive, statistically valid, in-person use survey that would provide quantifiable information about who is currently using the facilities, all of those park facilities, and what activities residents would like that are not being currently provided or not provided in sufficient quantity. In developing this survey, we please ask you to consult with Rossmoor stakeholders, including the RHA board, because we put a lot of thought into this. Second, we're asking that the board, the RCSD board, require all organized users of your facilities as a condition of obtaining a permit to collect and deliver to your board for publication on your website at least once a year, identifying the residency of the organization's members using the facilities. We'd like to see this data for everything that's going on starting this month. And finally, I can talk just as a little aside, we're asking that not just for the softball league, but for soccer leagues and whatever other organized leagues are using our facilities. We really were surprised by some of the data we saw. Finally, we respectfully request your board, the RCSD board, to promptly order a fee study to be performed in accordance with applicable law and set rates for the use of your RCSD facilities so as to create incentives and disincentives consistent with what we've asked for. That is, put the emphasis on Rossmoor residents. That doesn't mean we don't welcome outsiders, but the people in this community who live here and pay taxes here should get the main benefit of these facilities. That's what we're asking for. Thank you very much for your time. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions from? Okay, thank you. We'll take this under advisement.
Thanks.
Is there any other members of the public would like to make comment at this time? Okay, moving forward, we're on section E, our consent calendar. Is there any item that a board member would like to pull or discuss at this time? Let people catch up on iPads here.
Nothing.
Okay. Anything for you, Alfred?
No.
Okay. So at this point, consent items are expected to be routine, non-controversial, to be acted upon the board at one time. No board is requesting something to be removed, so now we're up for a motion.
Well, I would move, Mr. President, we approve of the consent calendar, the minutes 1A and the special meeting minutes 1B, inclusive of number 2, which is the November 2013 revenue and expenditure report.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Let it reflect that that was unanimous vote. Moving on to section G, we have resolutions tonight. First one up is 14-01-14-01, list of officials authorized to transact business with the district's banks and other financial institutions.
Mr. Chairman, you could pull that item because there's been no change in the officers, so it's not necessary to take an action on that tonight.
Very good.
Perfect.
So now we go to ordinance under section G. Ordinance number 2014-01, adopting rules and regulations for the administration, operation, and use of facilities and services, and this is our second reading. Is there any discussion that any board member would like to bring up at this time?
I think it'd be appropriate to indicate, Mr. President, that should this ordinance be adopted, this meeting would take effect 30 days after the second reading, which is tonight. It would also be posted in a newspaper of general circulation prior to taking effect. Policy number 1000 will take effect immediately if approved at the second reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at this point, do we have a motion for adoption of ordinance 2014-01?
So motioned.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor of adopting ordinance number 2014-01, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Let it reflect that ordinance 2014-01 was adopted 5-0. Now we go to section H, our regular calendar tonight. We have a public report on action and vote for each member, H1.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we've been advised by General Counsel to bring this to your attention. It's the change in the public law, and basically it relates to any vote by a public meeting, and it's in addition to the Brown Act passed rules and regulations. In effect, if there's a difference on the vote by board members, that difference must be posted, and it must be indicated to the public that who voted which way and who voted no on certain items. So it must be very transparent, and I think it's a good thing for the public, but that law is in effect as of January 1, and we will be following that policy in the future.
Okay. Any question to our council or district staff on this new action required?
Seems very clear to me.
Okay. So we move on to H number 2, discussion and possible action regarding location and placement of Southern California gas smart meters within the district, H2.
This item was requested to be put on the agenda by Councilman Coletta for discussion tonight, and he does have some material he'd like to share with the board members and some questions he'd like to raise.
Alfred, you are the chairman of the subcommittee, so why don't you?
Well, before I proceed, I'd like to ask Mr. Ruth if you could share with us what, if anything, you've gleaned as a new manager on this topic concerning what had been accomplished prior to your accepting the position as manager, and secondly, if you would go into what's been achieved, if you feel there's been any achievement since you've been the manager up to the current date.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Director Coletta. Staff and I have been working diligently to make sure we're up to speed in terms of what the status of the project is with the gas company. We've had numerous conversations with their outreach people. Today we met with one of the managers who actually came out and visited with us, who's in charge of the project. And they gave us the history in terms of the 2 locations that they had proposed here in Rossmoor, one being on Gertrude Street, which there was one property owner opposed that particular location. And they proposed then to look at the park down on, what's the street? Foster Street, yeah, Foster Street. And when we went out and looked at these at staff, the Foster Street proposed some challenges for us, but what they informed us of today is, first of all, they have not got the permits for it yet. They batch these permits with the gas company and submit so many to the county. When they're finished with those, then they'll send them a second batch, and there's like 10 or 15 locations, I think, in different agencies out there. So our batch is about to be presented to the county for permit approval probably within the next couple of weeks. What they essentially told us today is that they have tried to work with the community very closely. They have done outreach here at the site on Foster Road. Initially, they had talked to one of the residents down there. There was only 3 properties that would possibly be affected at the time. They talked to one of them. That person had no problem. The other 2 were not at home, and they left their package of information and their contact information to get back to them. Never heard from those 2 residents. And in the meantime, there was another home built on that adjoining property to the south. And basically, what we asked them today is, all right, you didn't hear back from the other 2, and you haven't talked to the new homeowner. So they went down and spoke with them today to explain their project. Second homeowner said they had no problem with it if they moved it just a little bit in the parkway. The new homeowner had no problem with the project, and then the 4th person was still not accessible. So essentially, they've done outreach, they've worked with the community, they feel that within the constraints that they have in terms of making the system work, and they informed us, and of course you're all very much aware, they had initially proposed 2 towers here in Rossmoor. One of those was reallocated back into Los Alamitos, and it has been installed in Los Alamitos at this time. So all the other units that were in that packet that have been installed, we're kind of the last one in this particular circumference that they're trying to accomplish to make sure that they get the consistency of service. So essentially, what they came back and told us is that, emailed us late this afternoon, said that 4 out of the 5 down there do not, or 3 out of the 4, do not have a problem with that particular location, which is at our park site there on Foster Road. And that's where it is. And of course, they do have a lot of authority vested from the state to make these determinations. We tried to make sure that was there any other possible locations out there, and frankly, they didn't feel that there was anything that would be acceptable to their agency. So that's kind of where it is as of today.
All right, since this topic had come up last year, I know that yourself and Mr. Taboada and Mr. Casey and myself and perhaps other board members have expressed that more concerted effort by this staff be initiated to pursue other alternative sites for placement of poles. And I gleaned from your response tonight, you're the conduit from them, again, as Ms. Montana had expressed in the past, that they're just not open-minded enough, or they're not interested in pursuing other sites outside of Rossmoor to facilitate this technology. And I can only glean that that is because they believe they're negotiating for a position of strength. We're here in a vacuum confronting a very large monopoly. Under the licensing of the FCC and other state oversight, I'm sure, sections that permit them to operate unlawfully. But when you take a closer look at this technology, it really is not for the benefit of the homeowner. It's to benefit them. The homeowner gets nothing from this other than perhaps increased rates from time to time as they deem appropriate. And so I did a little research, and I passed out this evening what I found very quickly from just doing a little search online, and I'm sure others can exhaust their resources and spend some time online or other reference works to see what has been published domestically and internationally on this topic of electromagnetic signals, what impact, if any, they have in and of themselves, if it's just one source of, if one considers with a more open mind objectively today, we're in a state of technology where there's a multitude of sources that impact not just businesses, but the homeowners. We've all advanced to the conveniences having electronic devices separate and apart from a cell phone, Wi-Fi routers, microwaves. I could list a panoply, but one of the studies that I present tonight, I hope this board doesn't feel it was a cram course in getting ready for this, but I didn't have the time to make this available earlier other than this afternoon, just before the meeting. I placed it on the desk. But there's a number of sources that contribute to the accumulation of electromagnetic radiation from Wi-Fi routers to baby monitors, Bluetooth earpieces, towers, antennas, smart boards, smart meters, cordless phones, other wireless devices. And one of the studies that I found online is from the Marion Institute, M-A-R-I-O-N, and this was published in October 3rd of 2013. And they make a correlation with not just smart meters, but a number of devices that are currently incorporated in many of our homes, that these devices and the frequencies of rates and the concentrations have an impact on certain sensitive or more weaker human beings, such as infants, children in the womb, people that have undergone chemotherapy or other forms of cancer therapy or treatment, People that have electronic devices in their bodies, such as those that ail from heart defects or heart ailments, heart disease. And in this study, one of the things that they encourage is that individuals opt out of this new technology, such as smart meters, from being installed near your home or in your home whenever possible. That's just one. I'll make that available to you, Mr. Ruth, for the staff's edification. A second report that I made available is from the County of Santa Cruz. Now, this was published in January 13, 2012. It was published by a health officer, a public health division by the name of Mr. Namkung, Namkung. You can draw this online. It's attached as a link that you can download from the website, which I'll make available. But it says health risks associated with smart meters. And that's the focus of this study. And it was commissioned in December of 2011 by the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors and directed to the public health officer, and they directed that he return to the board in January 2012 with an analysis of his research on the health effects on smart meters. Now, it's a very lengthy study, but I just highlighted portions that I wanted to read into the record tonight because I wanted the public to just get a snapshot of it, and then you can download it yourself and read it for yourself. The entirety of this study, which is about 6 or 7 pages, and it includes all the references that went into and incorporated to draw in certain conclusions. And in part, it makes and underscores on page 3 of it of this document, in the first full paragraph, that there's an additional accumulation of exposure to consumers of an already increased exposure to radio frequency radiation in the home through the voluntary use of wireless devices such as cell and cordless phones, personal digital assistants, routers for internet services access, home security systems, wireless baby surveillance, baby monitors, and other emerging devices. It also states it's impossible to know how close a consumer might be to their limit for making safety and uncertainty with the installation of a mandatory smart meter. And it states that this report will focus on the documented health risks of electromagnetic frequency in general, the relevance of that data to smart meters exposure, the established guidelines for radio frequency safety to the public at large, and then provide recommendations to ameliorate the risk to the public's health. I'm going to move to certain portions again of this study. And one of the head notes of the next paragraph says, evidence based on health risks of EMFs, which is electromagnetic frequencies. And in this one paragraph, it states that smart meters occupy the same spectrum as cell phones depending on conditions, can exceed the whole body radiation exposure of cell phones. In terms of health risks, the causal factor under study is RF radiation, whether it be from cell phones, Wi-Fi routers, cordless phones, or smart meters. Therefore, all available peer-reviewed scientific research data can be extrapolated to apply to smart meters, taking into consideration the magnitude and the intensity of the exposure. They also note in another paragraph under the same head note, there's an intriguing divide noted by Genius, apparently some other study in 2011, is that most research carried out by independent, non-government, and non-industry affiliated researchers suggests potentially serious effect from non-ionizing radiation exposures. Evidence, and there is some controversy, but they find that evidence is accumulating on the results of exposure to RF at non-thermal levels, including increased permeability of the blood-brain barrier in the head, harmful effects on sperm, double-strand breaks in DNA which could lead to cancer genesis, stress gene on activation indicating exposure to a toxin, and alterations in brain glucose metabolism. In another paragraph under the same head note, it states another potential health risk related to EMF exposure whose legitimacy as a phenomenon remains contentious is electromagnetic hypersensitivity. In essence, what it electromagnetic hypersensitivity is some people are more prone to being impacted by EMF exposure. To use a broad brush to paint the smart meters as to perhaps put out a signal once every 15 minutes, 24/7, or say an accumulation of 2 whole minutes per year, and to sweep everyone under that category and say there's no noted impact, I think is speculative if one wants to jump onto that and embrace it. One other head note, again, a paragraph in the same head notes that says in the early 2000s, estimates of the occurrence of electromagnetic hypersensitivity began to swell, with studies estimating the prevalence of this condition in about 1.5% of the population in Sweden, 3.2% in California, and 8% in Germany. In 2004, the World Health Organization declared that electromagnetic hypersensitivity is a phenomenon where individuals experience adverse health effect while using or being in the vicinity of devices emanating electromagnetic fields. Whatever its cause, electromagnetic sensitivity is a real and sometimes debilitating problem for the affected persons. Currently, research has demonstrated objective evidence to support that electromagnetic hypersensitivity diagnosis, defining pathological mechanisms including immune dysregulation in vitro with increased production of selected cytokines and disruption and dysregulation of catecholamine physiology. Until recently, the diagnosis of hypersensitivity was not received much support from the medical community due to a lack of objective evidence. In an effort to determine the legitimacy of the electromagnetic hypersensitivity, a collection of scientists and physicians recently conducted a double-blind research study that concluded that EMF hypersensitivity can occur as a bona fide environmentally inducible neurological syndrome. I'm going to read just the closing paragraph, and I say that as a foundation to further discussions later, and it states, in summary, there is no scientific data to determine if there is a safe RF exposure level regarding its non-thermal effects. The question for governmental agencies is that given the uncertainty of safety, the evidence of existing and potential harm, should we err on the side of safety and take the precautionary avoidance measures? Meaning it's raising the rhetorical question. The two unique features of a smart meter exposure are: one, a universal exposure thus far because of mandatory installation, ensuring that virtually every household is exposed, and two, involuntary exposure, whether one has a smart meter on their home or not, due to the already ubiquitous saturation of installation in the Santa Cruz County. Governmental agencies for protecting public health and safety should be more vigilant towards involuntary environmental exposures, because governmental agencies are the only defense against such involuntary exposure. Now, I didn't do justice to this study by portions that I've lifted because of this time that's available to us this evening, but I also took another step and looked at one other clip of information that I found available, and that was a group that tried to determine, well, what impact is there if it isn't from telemetered sources that are immediately confronting the individual? What is the impact if you're within 2 to 3 feet or 1 foot of a sensor or a device that's sending a signal? And I found one such study, and if Ms. Deering, if you would be so kind to put that on the screen so that we can all watch that. I hope that it will work this evening, but it's something you can download off of YouTube, and hopefully the sound will be caught on this film this evening.
While industry has failed to do any peer-reviewed studies on smart meters and health effects, a growing body of independent research is now starting to accumulate.
In our second set of tests, we're using the smart meter. Before the exposure, we see the same thing as we saw in the first samples. Normal cell walls, fairly separated and looking healthy. So after 2 minutes of exposure in front of the smart meter at about 1 foot away, we see a totally different story. Sample 1, you can see a lot of degradation in the cells. The cell walls have been broken, and you see changes in the cells which are called mycoplasma. It shows a mutation to the cell. In the second sample, we see a different type of degradation to the cell membranes. You can see a corrugation here. This is called bottle cap formation, and it's known that this occurs due to oxidation or exposure to free radicals. So this third subject, when we did her sample, she had to be pulled away from the meter after 45 seconds because she complained about an increasingly severe headache. And here you see a phenomenon called rouleau, where the red blood cells are stacking up, which makes it very difficult for the blood to deliver oxygen to the tissues as they would be their normal function. Every single one of these is a degradation. Every single one of these shows a trauma to the blood cells. And that came from something, and the only variable was the smart meter.
What's going on here? This is a wireless device which is unproven scientifically, which all the evidence so far proves is dangerous or questionable, which should therefore be studied intensely before it's released to the public. Clever people called the technology smart to make it seem intimidating so no one would question it. Some smart ad man came up with that and got paid $300,000 to call it a smart meter so you would feel less knowledgeable, which they know we feel, and then you wouldn't question the smart people putting it in your house. So I call them not smart meters, dangerous meters.
Thank you, Mr. You can shut it off. That's the end of it. And, you know, we have to take notice as well that so far, for those that have been following this issue, I know Mr. Casey knows of this fact, and the other board members as well, that we're the only area in the southwest or the northwest part of the county that's being saddled with this technology. You know, our neighbors to the south at Seal Beach don't have these smart meter poles mounted near, adjacent, in front of a single family dwelling or of units of 4 units or less where human beings would live 24/7. They have these towers mounted on a fire department or the city hall or other remote places. And prospectively, Los Alamitos doesn't have this same technology. There's a proposal to put one at the corner of across the street from Orangewood and Los Al, right next to St. Hedwig Church, yet in the backyard, if you will, within probably 50 to 75 feet of someone's back door by the aqueduct that feeds from Los Al and Orangewood down to the base. We're not given a choice. I attempted with my colleague, Mr. Casey, to present photographs to the then manager, Ms. Montana, who was then interfacing with SoCal Gases of alternative sites that might be available if they'd have an open mind to somewhere other than besides someone's home. Those sites were, and I'll be public about it, was the library here on Montecito Road. The rooftop of it's a county building. It's in a shopping area with just as much parking lot as there is commercial building, and people don't live there 24/7. Another site was the Rossmoor shopping village. There's a large parking lot there, and there's an alleyway there. It's more of a commercial zone, clearly. I know there's apartments on the corner of Hedwig and Wallingsford, but it's not as close as what's being proposed to some of the residences here in Rossmoor, one of which is on Foster Road, and I've heard of other potential sites. I just feel it's just unconscionable that we have to accept this. I'm concerned. I would be very concerned if I lived on Foster Road and if it was going to be located, 75 feet from my front door or 200 feet. Just a little bit of reading I've done, I don't think this is like having a telephone pole with some telephone wires on it. It's not the same. In California, there's a requirement, there's a document that all sellers must disclose. It's called a transfer disclosure statement. And on page 2, it allows you to identify all sources, including nuisances. And that's specifically enumerated under subcategory C11 of the second page of the disclosure statement. This is not the broker's responsibility. It's not the real estate agent's responsibility. It's the seller's responsibility. Now, you may not believe in the science and say necessarily it's going to cause you cancer for sure, but who's to say that 3.2% of the persons that come to your door, there is a published study that says Californians have been documented to be affected by hypersensitivity to electromagnetic signals, that isn't one of the people coming to your door to buy your house. I just don't think it's something I'm willing to sign up for if I were a homeowner. And I'm not going to accept SoCal Gas or anyone that's got a sole objective of making money and from another point of view, eliminating jobs. What does the homeowner get? What convenience do they get? A more timely bill? They don't. They're going to get a timely bill whether there's a smart meter installed or not. What do we gain? And the point of the matter is we need someone to talk to them and say, look, there are other sites. We understand you're going to push your technology, but there are other sites. And someone needs to make them take a deep breath and step back and be a good neighbor and find alternative sites other than the site of someone's home. They're unsightly. This community is, not developed too far after suburbia, which was built in the 1958, early 1960. And they have underground utilities. This was initiated as far as construction 1956-57, and we have utility poles still. I'm wondering how much more do we have to take? And particularly when this one's potentially possibilities hazardous to people's health. I just would urge us to take a second look at this. And I think that it's worthwhile to entertain contacting our supervisor for District 2 and asking him to intercede. I don't know why we should just roll over, acquiesce. Well, we're the unincorporated area. We're just Rossmoor. We're the redheaded stepchild, if you will, nobody wants. I don't take that as the mindset that I will ever entertain, as long as I sit on this board or I don't. And I don't. I refuse to. So it's my motion tonight. Whether I get a second or not, I could care less. But my motion is that we write a letter to our District 2 supervisor immediately, requesting that he put a stop to the issuance of a permit that would permit Southern California Gas to install any smart meters adjacent or in front of or in back of anyone's home. That he caused them to rethink their technology, the number of poles that might be required to incorporate such technology in Rossmoor. If it means placing more poles outside of Rossmoor to facilitate their focused objective, well, that's on them. And number 3, I think we should meet with the supervisor through his chief of staff, at least telephonically, letting them know that the letter's coming. And urge a meeting with the supervisor and discuss this, present the Santa Cruz public health document that's only 2 years old, share with the supervisor the little that I've gleaned and perhaps other research that staff can do. And I think that it just means that we should be very cautiously looking at this as opposed to, well, it's over, they've got their permit, and we need to roll over.
Well, I'll certainly second it because I was part of the process when we were looking at alternative sites to put these towers. And among the others that Alfred has suggested, there were many sites along the perimeter of Rossmoor on all sides that were selected as what I considered to be very viable sites that were within the parameters of reading the meters and the like. And it appeared that they just summarily dismissed what we had to say and went directly back to the original two sites that they proposed, one of which was on Orangewood, the other on Foster Road. And my understanding is now, Mr. General Manager, that they have relented on one of them. They've moved it across the street, if I understand correctly, near the St. Hedwig Church.
Right.
So,
Meters.
yeah, anyway, I agree. You know, we're being toyed with. They have money and the power, and, you know, we're just sitting here saying we have to take it.
We had actually requested that they be here tonight to speak to the board, to address those questions, and they had a conflict tonight. They were down in Dove Canyon for a meeting down there with the residents down there. They were more than willing to come before the board and address any questions you might have. So
that's good.
We could reschedule that for your consideration.
Because my understanding was that they were hell-bent to make a decision in terms of getting these sites selected and started with this month. That's what I understood from our December meeting, or at some point during that time frame.
Henry says that's correct.
Okay, good.
And, you know, we had a representative, I think, last year come, and again, I think what we're talking about, that person's the wrong person. I mean, he's a PR guy trying to, you know, this is, what you bring up, Director Collette, is something, you know, a little more serious. And, you know, I got a question based on, you know, what your research is it, where is the radiation, the radiation is coming from each smart meter to these poles, so there is an affinity to have much more radiation at the pole, and does then the pole transmit to another central station? How does it work?
Well, I'm not the expert, Mr. DeMarco, but if you look at page 2 of this County of Santa Cruz, or actually the bottom page 1 and most of page 2, it really explains it. Clearly, the meter at the house prospectively remits a signal, and that's one source. The poles themselves transmit signals, obviously, to other poles, and from what I recall from the presentation a year ago, or almost a year ago, there's a need for a redundancy amongst this pattern of overlay prospectively over any site, whether it's Seal Beach or Rossmoor, that has this technology for the collection of data. There's a need on the part of the engineers for SoCalGas, the utility company, to have not a single failure point disrupt the reception of signals, but to have an overlay such that it can telemeter a further distance to another location to meet another pole. So in essence, it's a double-edged sword. They say, well, you have to have it here, but yet technically there's a pole somewhere else that can pick up the data.
But just in case that one goes out.
Correct, correct. And they don't want to be relying upon a pole more further placed than what they say is the technology. Well, we don't know. We don't know, because we don't have an engineer to contradict or to confront the engineering, and I'm not planning to take that on personally. But cumulatively, it's not just the meter at the house. It's also the accumulation of the pole itself that puts this stuff out in the atmosphere involuntarily, and we're all exposed to it. Our cell phone devices, this iPad here tonight, they're all sources, but there's accumulation effect that no one wants to address. And I'm not going to exhaust all studies, and I don't think it's incumbent upon me or anyone to address all studies, because I'm sure for everyone that I come up with, they're going to come up with something to confront it. The point of the matter is, I'm not convinced that it's a completely safe technology. There is a possibility, it's been documented, that 3.2% of the California's population has a hypersensitivity to it. What is enough? 1%? 10% of the population? Where do you draw the line? And I think this person, this master's or PhD from the public health, this doctor from Santa Cruz, NAMKUNG, N-A-M-K-U-N-G, said it clearly that government agencies have the obligation of being, if you will, the parent to look over the constituents. I don't think you can say it any more clearer. I mean, what advantage do they get for putting something out there that's false? What do they gain? The city gets or the county gets a franchise from the utility company. You know, that's the money that's not spoken of, that's given to the counties and the cities to continue the relationship. So they can continue to have a monopoly and go in there and charge clients from only one source for an energy source. That's my point of view. So I think that someone has to speak up. We don't get any benefit.
Director Kaler? Liz, can you go back to one of the very first slides you had up here where it showed the county map and the location of poles?
I can, let me see if it doesn't start playing again. Let me go back.
No, not the movie, just one more back, I think. There we go. This is the part that I have a hard time. When you actually look at the whole coverage of our county of Orange County, and you see a lot of them in unpopulated areas to create some kind of mass signal, probably to help San Diego County to get into our county. But then you look, and this is where they have not convinced me that the pole has to even be in Rossmoor. Because you look at where the 405, the 22, where that hit, and then look at all that independent area.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, since we are an unincorporated
It's easy.
community of the county,
Yeah, it's easy, that's
it's
right.
easy for them to inflict their will and do this to us instead of working with us. I know they've come out and talked to us. I know that we talk to them on the phone, and that's all nice. But on this one here, I'm in agreement with my colleagues to my right here that I think we have to show a little bit more resolve and a little bit more muscle. Because they already said that, you know, maybe there's some people who don't want it in front of their home. Well, I personally oppose this being in front of one of our mini parks. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are other associations or other parts of our community who feel strongly about our parks, not to have this pole right in front of a park. And again, looking at this chart, I'd really need more of their engineer to explain to me how you can have huge, open, vast areas that I drove all those freeways today at work. So we're talking 48 square miles without a single pole, but by golly, we need one on St. Hedwig's and LaSalle, and we really have to have this also in close proximity to Hopkinson Elementary. And I don't know if there's, with these transmissions, if there's any particular law that says that Los Alamitos School District is an affected area since there's so many feet away from you know, an energy emitting device. I'm not sure what the school board has a position on this, but I believe on this one here that our community deserves our best effort to stop this, and if not being able to stop it, to at least mitigate where these poles are actually located. And that's my point of view.
And one last point, and I think that if a resident, I'm going to add this part of my motion as well, so I'm going to, since I
You'll have to
framed
sum it up.
I would ask that Mr. Casey consider
You
this.
seconded it.
I know. Well, I'm going to ask
Revise,
you
we'll
to.
revise.
No, I know, I'm kidding.
I know. I don't think if they're going to require this technology on the community, that they should charge a homeowner who wants to opt out. The homeowner is already paying for someone to come read their meter. If this technology is incorporated, they're not going to reduce rates for gas consumption. So thereby, a homeowner should not be penalized for opting out.
But at least they're given that option, where we're not given that option so far with the poles. Because I want to opt out of the whole pole thing.
So I would ask
So
that be
why
part of.
don't you restate your motion?
Well, I'm just going to add to the motion by stating that I would request that in the negotiations with the supervisor and SoCal Gas, that they not charge Rossmoor residents to opt out of the technology if that's their choice.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll put this up for vote. All in favor of the motion as seconded, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
You weren't opposing, though?
I'm opposing, yes.
You are opposing, okay.
Yeah.
On the record, it's 4-1, the dissenting vote being Director Kaler. Got to use that new regulation.
That's right.
Yes, we do.
Got to warm that one up. Okay, this now brings us on our agenda to General Manager items, Section I.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, just to bring an update, this coming Saturday, as everybody's aware, we're going to have the park dedication here at Rush Park for the play area. And a great project that's been in the works for some time, and it's finally accomplished, and had a good contractor, great staff effort. Emily and O'Mara and staff did a great job on getting this project to conclusion. We're looking forward to the program at 10 o'clock and encourage our public, certainly our residents here, and certainly board members and staff to be there for this very important occasion. So we're looking forward to it. And congratulate the board on your foresight in this capital improvement project for this district. It's an excellent addition, and it's being well received and extremely well utilized throughout every day. The second update is just the Lutheran Church. The new brick wall is in place. Once again, the contractor did an excellent job getting nice comments on it. We're working on the signage. They needed 10 days. We sized it up in terms that it'll be the same size as the wall across the street. And that signage should be done within 10 days, and we'll have it installed, so that project can be complete as well. On the latent powers, what we were looking for is the leadership on the Board of Supervisors was contemplated it was going to change today, actually, and they've delayed that to the 28th. So you'll have a new chairperson for the Board of Supervisors on the 28th. We've met with our consultant, Henry and I, and spent considerable time with her in terms of looking at a strategy there and getting a game plan, an action plan to proceed. Once we know who the chair is going to be, we'll finalize that information, get back to our board, let you people react to it, and we'll put the game plan in action and be off and running early in the month of February. Let's see, the signature wall, we're doing an assessment through our insurance carrier, SDRMA, and they're going to be looking at the bricks and those that need to be replaced and doing an assessment for us at no cost. And once we get that assessment, we'll come back to the board. There is money in the budget for it. I think it's around $150,000. And once we get that assessment, we'll come back with a full report. And obviously, we're going to have to go out to bid on that project. So, but that's moving along well as well. And we'll be setting up committee meetings based on your direction here in the last couple of weeks of January and February, getting them active. And the Budget Committee, the Park Committee, CIP Committee, Investment Committee, all those, and any other ones that you would foresee that need to get back in action. So we'll be moving on that very quickly as well. That's all I have to report, Mr. President.
Okay. We'll start over on your side, Director DeMarco, for board member items.
Let's see, not much to say. Hope everyone had a good holiday. It was night, but I went and looked at the Rush Park, the new facilities. It's very, very nice, very nice. My son already has played on it, on the playground, so I encourage all our residents and all the kids to come out this Saturday. I also, over the holidays, saw the construction of the corner at Wallingford and Catella. I think they were even working on a Sunday, putting that out. That very, very nice. I applaud that. I like seeing our identity on all of our corners. So I thought that's a very a positive note for Rossmoor. And I look forward to trying to establish a few more latent powers this coming year. So.
Very good. Director Kaler?
I'm good.
Director Casey.
Well, first I'd like to thank Michael Maynard for an excellent job of rendering this year's State of the District. It was very concise and well done. And secondly, I'd like to thank Mr. Coletta for, especially on short notice, of putting together all the information and including a nice little video. And I'm hoping out of this we can get some sort of traction going forward to maybe be able to put some teeth into something. And lastly, as it's already been proven the case, this is going to be a very exciting year in 2014, and it's certainly going to have a lot of challenges for both the RCSD board and for the Rossmoor community as a whole. And that's it.
Director Kaler? Kaler? I'm sorry, Director Coletta.
I wish to congratulate each of you in your positions as officers. You did a remarkable job last year, and the board looks forward to a continued concerted effort on all of your parts in your participation and support of the district's goals and objectives. I too echo thank you for a nice and a concise, focused State of the Union. I think it correctly reflects that the myth is no longer true. Rossmoor is no longer a debtor, but a contributor, and in a good way. It's better to give than to receive, we've heard say a multitude of times, but I'd rather be in that position. It characterizes that as opposed to the person who's baggage to Orange County. And I look forward to all that's on our plate for next year. We have an exciting year, 2014. We have a new manager. Excited to work with him, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Okay. I want to start off by saying Happy New Year as well. I am very optimistic about 2014. Per what you said, Mr. Ruth, let's make sure that we have a budget committee meeting, an investment committee, the CIP, but we also need to have two very key subcommittees. One being the Parks and Facilities Subcommittee. We need to meet and go over a lot of things that are on the plate when it regards to our facilities, our parks, our mini parks, etc. And I also think that it's probably going to make sense to lean on Alfred and Director Casey here for the Utility Pole Subcommittee, and maybe as you guys work together on applying some muscle here, that there's a meeting in between so you guys can come back to the whole board in February, specifically on these utility poles. I want to thank the board for allowing me the opportunity to serve an extra year here. We've got some big objectives, again, primarily latent powers, and I believe that we have the right team in place and that we will make every single effort to deliver to the community the services that they need and that we need, as long as it's cost efficient and we create those great efficiencies that only special districts do instead of bureaucracies. So at this point, do we have a nomination for adjournment?
So motioned.
Second? Second. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Meeting adjourned. Good evening, everyone. Today's Tuesday, January 14th. Today is our annual meeting of the Rossmoor Community Service District Public Improvement Financing Corporation. Again, this is our annual once-a-year meeting. Can we please have a call to order?
Director Coletta? Director Casey?
Here.
Director Kaler?
Aye.
Director DeMarco?
Here.
President Maynard?
Here. Let's stand for our Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On section 4 of our agenda here, we have our regular meeting, January 8th, 2013. 13, and there's minutes there.
They're information only.
Okay. There's no presentation, and we're now on item number 6, election of officers.
Under our policy, the president is chair, and the first vice president is vice chair, and we must appoint a general manager as secretary, chief financial officer,
Okay.
which is the general manager.
Do we do a roll call vote?
And I'm sorry, and general counsel as well.
Where'd he go?
He took a hike.
Okay. So is this a motion and a roll call, or what is the protocol here?
Yes.
Mr. President, the way that this normally works is that you will have an election, much like you did for your regular meeting, and you'll vote to appoint these folks to these positions, and then you'll adopt those votes by resolution further in the agenda.
Okay, so let's start with you, Mr. General Manager, Mr. Ruth. Can you please open up the forum for nominations for our president?
Nominations now open for the position of president.
I'd like to nominate Michael Maynard as the president of the, can I call it the PIFC?
Yes.
Done.
There's a second?
Is there a second?
A second.
Roll call, please.
Director Coletta?
Aye.
Director Casey?
Aye.
Director Kaler?
Aye.
Director DeMarco?
Aye.
And President Maynard.
Aye. Let it reflect that it was 5-0 unanimous vote. At this point, is there a nomination for vice president?
Nominate Mr. Kaler.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Director Coletta?
Aye.
Director Casey?
Aye.
Director Kaler?
Aye.
Director DeMarco?
Aye.
President Maynard.
Aye. Let it reflect that also was a 5-0 vote. At this point, moving on, we do not have any additions to the agenda. We don't have any public to forum. No reports to the board. There isn't a consent calendar, so we go straight to item G, resolution number 1. Resolution number 14-01-14-1. A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Rossmoor Community Service District Public Improvements Financing Corporation, electing officers, appointing counsel and secretary, chief financial officer to the corporation, and designating the time and place for the holder of a regular meeting of the board.
A roll call vote?
Need a motion to approve?
Motion to
Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I motion that we approve the resolution.
Is it-
Second.
Okay, all in favor, or is this roll call? Roll call? Okay, roll call, please.
Director Coletta?
Aye.
Director Casey?
Aye.
Director Kaler?
Aye.
Director DeMarco?
Aye.
President Maynard.
Aye. At this point, we'll move to board member items. Is there any board member items for the PIFC? Okay,
Nothing.
there's no closed session. Is there a nomination for adjournment?
So motioned.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.